Well, joining us to talk about the potential economic impacts that overturning Roe v. Wade may have on women in the workforce, I'm joined by Thomas Gross. He teaches at the George Washington University's Graduate Business School and is an attorney. Thanks very much for joining us, Thomas. I certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sean. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Thomas, this is a tough one. It is such a passionate, emotional issue, and there are so many consequences of a decision that could overturn this landmark legislation. Not to sound crass here, but help us put this in context. The cost of abortion services in the United States. And like so much legislation, this could very well have a huge impact on women of color and people of lower income.
Well, I mean, I think that's right. And if you look at the actual cost of an abortion, there are really a couple of ways to get an abortion. One is, and most frequent, is just by pills. And that cost is is probably in the $500 to $1,000 range. And if you do a surgical abortion, it probably in the range at least $5,000. So, you know, when you take the results of Roe v. Wade and you add the travel costs, people have to travel from Arizona to California or Alabama to Connecticut. This becomes really a significant economic issue for a lot of people, especially people low incomes or hourly wage jobs. They may not be able to leave their job, you know, for several days in order to travel to these states. So, you know, it arguably has a disproportionate impact on, you know, low-income people and low-wage earners.
And we also know there's a sizable gap in gender pay and significant gaps in states that have strict abortion laws. We've already touched on the majority of those states. Now, could overturning Roe v. Wade lead to new concerns? And what kind of support do you think pregnant women can expect from these states moving forward?
Well, I mean, I think in your commentary, you correctly pointed out that it really is divided along political lines. And, you know, conservative states are most likely to ban abortions, and the more liberal democratic states are more likely to allow it. So if you're in a conservative state, you're probably not going to get much assistance from them. And part of the concern about this opinion is that if it goes into effect, and we have to remember it's only a draft opinion, right, is states could do more than just, arguably would try to do more than just ban the abortion. They may try to ban, for example, the importation of abortion pills into their states. So this sets the battle for a number of legal issues. For example, the domain of interstate commerce is almost exclusively within the domain of the federal government. So if states start to interfere with these rights, we could see some very interesting litigation come out of it.
Let's talk about what kind of reaction we have seen from the business sector so far, taking into consideration that most polls show nearly 2/3 of Americans support a woman's right to abortion.
So, you know, the corporate activism issue is very interesting. And I think maybe if we just step back for a minute and look at the basis for Roe v. Wade from a legal perspective, I think it helps understand the economic consequences. When Roe came out in '73, almost 50 years ago, it was based on the right to privacy, that the government should not be intruding into a woman's right to choose an abortion, and this was deemed to be a federally protected right. The right to privacy is not explicitly in the Constitution, but was inferred or deemed to be implicit in the Constitution in an earlier 1965 case called Griswold versus Connecticut, where Connecticut outlawed the use of contraceptives in the bedroom. And in that case, the Supreme Court looked at all the rights enumerated in the Constitution, the right to freedom of speech, from unreasonable searches and seizures, due process, etc., and said, although privacy is not explicitly mentioned, it is implicit in all these other rights, or as they said, in the shadow or the penumbra of those rights. So when you look at the Roe decision based on privacy and affirmed later in 1992 in Casey, you see that this deals with very important individual rights. So when people see a draft opinion, like we have here in Mississippi, they're looking at it and they're seeing potentially an erosion of their individual rights. Now, to get to the corporate activism, you have to think about, like, you know, why would corporations get involved in this? Well, first of all, it affects their employees. I mean,
absolutely.
Right? And so any good corporate manager knows that their workforce is arguably the most important asset they have. So corporations are involved from there. But if I could mention the Florida versus Disney case, I think it relates to this a little bit because there definitely was corporate activism there where Disney just blatantly said to the state of Florida, we are going to take you on. And why did it do that in that case? In that case, because the shareholders demanded that corporate activism. So here you have a corporation interested not only in its employees, but also the shareholders could be demanding it.
You know, Thomas, this is an issue that isn't going away. I live 8 blocks from the U.S. Supreme Court. Driving by it every day is just, it's amazing to watch. And we also have the midterm elections coming up. We'd love to chat with you again before this issue does come to a head. Once again, our thanks to Thomas Gross. He teaches at the George Washington University's Graduate Business School and as well as an attorney. Thomas, a delicate issue. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks for having me.